Hi 1301 students, this is Miss Moore starting out our week 14. Just on a note, of course, we have a holiday this week, so this week is designed to be a shorter week. I don't expect you to have to spend too much time in the class this week. However, that being said, I do want to remind you that we do have some mind tap exercises due this week as normal, so they will be due on Sunday. I would highly suggest just getting them done in the next couple of days and enjoying time with your family for the rest of the break. However, you can choose how you want to do those. Again, there are some mind tap exercises due at the end of this week. Those mind tap exercises are going to be over chapter 10, which I'm going to briefly outline in this video, which is on narration, description, and reflection. So you'll be looking at some examples from within the book in your reading, in your mind tap exercises, and hopefully this video will just expand on some of what the book teaches you about narration and description, looking towards your essay number 6. I actually want to go ahead and start with the essay assignment just because I think that'll give you an idea of where you're going for this assignment. So essay number 6 is your final exam, and it's a narration, description, and reflection essay based on this chapter 10. Now, what I wanted to point out is that notice that next week is going to be a normal week, and we haven't done it quite like this in a while because our essay 5 was so extended. So, the essay is due 2 weeks, Sunday, December 7th. So, no essay due this week. It'll be due the next week in week 15, Sunday, December 7th. However, next week you will have an outline and thesis due on Wednesday, December 3rd, rough draft due Friday, December 5th, and there's no peer review on this narration description essay. I want to see how you can finish your own essay. Now, all those dates are next week, so I will remind you of them then, but I felt like you needed to have your Essay 6 assignment as you read about narration so you could visualize what you're going to be writing about. This essay is designed to be kind of a fun, hopefully more relaxed ending to the semester. Remember that all semester I've encouraged you to use very formal language. I've encouraged you to avoid using first person, and this essay is a release from that. This essay is meant to be personal. You can actually use first person I. This can be your story. This can be your narrative. And so it's supposed to be a little bit more informal, a little bit more personal. On that note, though, there are some stipulations, and there is an art to this. There is a reason we're telling the story. It's not just to tell a story. And so I'll get into that. I'm getting ahead of myself. But for your final exam, your final essay, notice what I've put here. The assignment will be a narrative essay as discussed in chapter 10 of your textbook. Because narratives are often personal, I ask that you choose a worthwhile but also manageable topic. It's important that you realize I must grade these reflections based on your writing skills, not the experience. If you are at all afraid that you will be offended to get a grade on the topic, please choose something equally interesting but not as deeply personal. Also remember that the narrative should be as specific as possible. Therefore, choose a small but significant experience. So, a couple of things here as you read this assignment sheet. Number 1, remember that I have to grade this, and so I really encourage you to stay away from very, very emotional topics. I want you to choose a topic that's important to you. but I also don't want you to be upset when I have to give you a grade on that. If you receive a C, you have to be okay with that, and you have to know that I'm grading your writing skills and not the experience itself. And that's a hard line to draw, and so I want you to be careful on the topics that you choose. Also, on that note, we need to really narrow our focus. So the topic that you choose needs to be a manageable topic. It needs to be something that you can describe in 1 to 2 pages. Oh, in fact, I forgot to put the page limit on this assignment sheet. The page limit for the assignment is 1 to 2 pages. So the maximum amount that you can write is 2 pages. And that's not a lot of time to cover a year of your life, or 5 years of your life, or even a month of your life. So you have to make your topic very, very small. Some things to consider as you think about what you want to write your story about. Here are some topics from the book, and I want you to read these and think about them. And then I want to give you just a real life example. One of the best narrative essays I've ever gotten was actually just about someone baking a cake. It was a simple concept. She remembered a time that she was baking a cake for a fair, and the cake fell, which if you're a baker, you know that means it kind of caved in. And my student writer took that experience and talked about it and reflected on it and made it into a really good narration, description, and reflection essay. It wasn't anything profound or life-changing. It doesn't have to be something major. It just has to be a reflection. Hopefully you'll see that also in some of the narratives that you read this week as examples. So this is your assignment sheet. Remember, I forgot to put the page limit 1 to 2 pages. And so you'll be brainstorming on this, and I will catch up with you next week in my video, give you some more brainstorming activities. But for right now, I really just wanted you to know the assignment in order to understand narration and description better as you start studying it for the chapter this week. So let's briefly go over chapter 10. I have the whole chapter outlined here, but I'm just going to make a couple of notes, so you'll want to read the chapter fully on your own and really get the benefit of all of the detail. But what I really wanted to focus this video on is being sure that you understand that these three are related. I would say that narration is going to contain description and reflection. And let me tell you how I see that. So narration is basically a story. Any story that you can tell. Once upon a time, blah, 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 blah. That's narration. But narration alone can sound kind of like a journal entry or a diary entry. All you're doing is stating the facts. You're telling me what happened, maybe telling me how it made you feel. But narration alone does not make what we call a narrative or a personal essay. A personal essay needs to do more. Think about the audience. A narrative, a story about your day, a journal entry, your audience is yourself, right? But a narrative essay, a personal essay, is meant for more people, is meant for an audience. And that's why we need description and reflection within the narration so that your audience can get something out of the story. Here is what I would describe narration as. Narration contains description, and description adds detail and interest to your paper. Your description is going to be intentional. It's going to intentionally highlight parts of your reflection. Your reflection answers the question, so what? Why am I writing this essay? Why am I telling you this story? Your reflection is going to contain a thesis. A lot of people think a personal narrative doesn't need a thesis, but a personal narrative still needs that guiding theme or idea. You could even think of it as the moral of the story. So you've got to have something that drives the story, some reason. So let me give you an example of this based on the essay that I mentioned a minute ago. So the essay that I mentioned a minute ago narrated a day of this girl's life in which she baked a cake. So it talks about her getting ready to bake the cake. It talks about her putting all the ingredients together, so she creates a timeline. Talks about the cake falling and the fact that she couldn't enter it into the fair. So that's a story, okay? That's what she would tell someone if they ask her what happened on that day of her life. But it's not a narrative essay. So what she did was she decided to add some reflection to it. She noticed that because that cake fell, she noticed that some things don't work out the way they're supposed to. She made this reflection about it. She also made a reflection about her own personality, and she said, that it really disappoints her when things don't go her way, when she's prepared for something and it doesn't turn out right. So she reflected on those a little bit, and she was able to compare this event in her life to a life lesson that things don't always go our way. However, she also compared the fact that even though the cake was messed up, even though it wasn't going to be able to enter into the fair, guess what? She and her mom and her family ate the cake, and it was really good. And so she also reflected on the fact that even our mistakes can still be sweet. There can still be some goodness within our mistakes. So she took this small event of her life and she was able to reflect on it. She was able to make a thesis statement based on this event in her life. And what this did is it made it interesting to her audience, not just herself. So now the audience understands, oh, this is an interesting way to look at life. And so she added that reflection. She also added description to her essay. She described the cake and the way it looked and how ugly it was. But then she also described how good it tasted. And so she had these two descriptions that intentionally reflected, intentionally tied to her reflection. And so she used the description and the reflection to make the narration more than just a story, to answer the question, so what? So that is kind of how all three of these are going to work together in your own narrative essay. So you're going to want to start brainstorming this week. First of all, though, I just want you to learn this week about narration, description, and reflection. I want you to read the chapter and really pick apart each element and be sure that your essay will follow all three of these and have all three of these elements. Now, when we come back from Thanksgiving, I'll give you a little bit more direction. I'll give you some brainstorming activities. But really, over the holidays, just start reflecting. Start making a list of things in your life that could correlate here. Start making a list and getting ready to write your narrative. Unfortunately, I'm running out of time, so I'll leave you there to work on Chapter 10 this week. And I will look forward to hearing from you next week with your narration. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving break. Enjoy the holiday, and I will meet you back here in week 15.